Right, so once again, US and UK forces have attacked Yemen. Allegedly, 8 more targets struck once more in a bid to stop the Red Sea attacks the Houthis have been making. Sorry, Iran-backed Houthis, as the media keep calling them. Let's not forget to remind everyone who is funding the attacks on Israeli shipping in the Red Sea. But equally, we should also not forget that that shipping isn't just Israeli, but any country delivering cargo to and from Israel as well. So that the next time a politician pops up and bleats about 50 different countries having their ships attacked, they should perhaps provide some context about where those ships were coming or going from, because you'll probably find it's Israel. We also need to always remember why the Houthis are doing this, because they're trying to bring about the end of the genocide in Gaza, which also puts the attacks on them into perspective, because if you are attacking Yemen right now, you're doing it to defend that genocide. Western-backed Israel, Houthi-supported Gaza, Iran-backed Yemen. Our media is woeful at providing all of the right context, just some of it. But ultimately, the war on Yemen is futile. They've made history. They've invented an entirely new method of naval blockade, where they don't even need their own navy, and where everything they are throwing at some of the most powerful naval forces in the world are at a fraction of the cost of that which their opponents are returning fire with. You can blow up this Yemen target or another. They'll just set up somewhere else at next to no cost at all. There is no win here when their actions are as clever as they are cheap to enact. The only way to end the blockade of Israeli shipping, and of course US and UK shipping now as well, is to end the siege of Gaza. Right, so Yemen has been hit again in another night of strikes by the now Yemeni proclaimed global terrorist networks of the US and the UK, along with those nations assisting them: Canada, Australia, Bahrain and Holland. 8 targets were hit, apparently striking missile launchers, air defence systems, radar. Even the capital city of Sana'a was hit, it being under Houthi control since 2014. Just like last time though, it won't make the blindest bit of difference to the Houthis. They will carry on doing what they're doing. It's what they do. Defeat isn't an option for them. They aren't wired up that way. They've beaten the US before because it's too tough a geography to fight with, too tough a terrain to combat. They've held off Saudi Arabia, their own neighbours, for 8 years as well. And this country is one of the poorest and most impoverished on the planet, and they've still done that, which makes targeting them all the more pathetic as well, and even more so when, despite their poverty, they're still willing to stand up and be counted to help a state less fortunate their own, which Palestine absolutely qualifies as. And the reason they will hold out and carry on and inflict more embarrassment and defeat on Western powers, through the futility of their actions as Yemen will keep on demonstrating, is that they've come up with an entirely new form of warfare. And that's been spelt out by an Irish economist of all people called Philip Pilkington. He explained it like this. A massive historical shift has just taken place, because up until December of last year, so just 6 weeks ago, if you wanted to enact a naval blockade, in human history from Roman times to the age of sail right up to 1995, if you wanted to enact a naval blockade, you needed a navy, a deep sea navy. And in order to have a navy, the navy is the most expensive component of the army. It's extremely expensive to maintain a navy. I think Britain knows how expensive it is to maintain a navy. So you need a massive GDP, and then you need the commitment to put that portion of the GDP on the table to build a big navy. At that point, you get to play with the big boys and threaten or enact a naval blockade. Well, the Houthis have just gone and enacted a naval blockade, and they've done so with cheap technology. Not low technology, cheap technology. It's not that they're using low-tech products, it's that high-tech products have become commodified and cheap, and they're able to enact a naval blockade. That's a first in human history. That's never, ever, ever been able to be done before. And the consequences of it are absolutely enormous. I think much broader, that technological shift, that proof is much, much bigger in a sense than anything that will actually happen in the Middle East. There's a delicious irony here that capitalism, the commodification of anything and everything, as we've seen for decades now, Thatcherism as it's known as in this country, driven by the West, enriching the West, because it's not just unique to the UK, is now getting used by the Middle East against the West. A nation whose navy consists of speedboats and dinghies, enacting a blockade not only on cargo vessels, but also military warships, as we've seen them do, to their cost admittedly as well. Attacks on vessels by the Houthis, notably against the US and UK, who got themselves added to their shipping target list after the first attack, are no longer limited to the Red Sea either, because to get to the Red Sea, shipping must travel along Yemen's south coast through the Gulf of Aden, itself no wider in any practical sense than the Red Sea is. A military supply vessel of the US called the Ocean Jazz has been targeted in the Gulf of Aden, en route with more missiles to US warships further along the line. Of course, the West is attempting to justify its actions still, again this time around as well, with the same excuses they made before, that this has nothing to do with Israel. It is just the Houthis threatening shipping in the Red Sea, and they are picking targets at random, just making nuisances of themselves. Our unelected Foreign Secretary, old ham-face himself, David Cameron, has been snarling through his thin lips about this again in light of this latest attack on Yemen, saying, "What the Houthis are doing is unacceptable. It's illegal and is threatening the freedom of navigation. That's why we've taken the action. Alongside that action is a whole set of measures we'll be taking, including sanctions and other pressure to put on the Houthis, combined, of course, with the actions of our Royal Navy is taking with others in the Red Sea, and we will be building the strongest coalition of support to back the steps that we've been taking." As full of crap today as he always has been. The Navy, as aforementioned, if making futile attempts to break this blockade, any sanctions that may be imposed, Iran will most likely mitigate. And if you want to talk about illegal, how about arming a nation committing genocide still, and your leader, Rishi Sunak, shaking hands with the maniac overseeing that and saying he hopes he wins? A case for aiding and abetting genocide is being built against this country now by South Africa, and you come out with pomposity about maintaining global shipping as your driving interest? Well, it might well be part of it now. Our own economy will be affected, but that's your idiocy for getting us involved militarily in this. Besides, it's a lie. To believe Cameron's rhetoric about the shipping, you'd think the Red Sea was a ghost town right now. And it isn't. And you can check that for yourself, just as I've done here.
Right, so this is taken from a website called marinetraffic.com, which shows all marine traffic travelling around the world at any one point in time, and it updates live, and you can check it for yourself. And if we have a look at the Red Sea here and the Gulf of Aden, you can very much see shipping traffic is very much flowing along the Gulf of Aden, up through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait just there, up through into the Red Sea, and traffic is moving in both directions. Depending on the colour of the arrow, tells you what sort of vessel it is. The green ones there are cargo vessels, and the little red ones there are tankers, and as I said, depending on which way the arrow is pointing, depends which direction the ship happens to be sailing at this particular point in time. And shipping is very much still moving, contrary to what David Cameron is telling us. If we go up into the north of the Red Sea, you can see shipping entering towards the Suez Canal here, and the Suez Canal is extremely busy, as you can tell, as it normally is. And if we zoom in towards the Gulf of Aqaba and we go and have a look at Israel and the port of Eilat, which is being blockaded, there's very little going on there, is there? What shipping is there at the top of the Gulf of Aqaba is docking in Aqaba itself, which is Jordan. So shipping travelling up here is Jordanian. Israel is being blockaded brilliantly efficiently by the Houthis in Yemen, and there's very, very little anyone can do about it.
Do check marineshipping.com for yourself. You will see a very busy Red Sea. As has been repeatedly said, the Houthis really are only targeting specific shipping. The very shipping they've said they're targeting in order to bring about a ceasefire in Gaza. The attacks on them are pathetic. The only deaths that have occurred in the Red Sea have been courtesy of Western actions. The Houthis themselves have killed nobody. The only thing they are killing is Western trade, along with that of Israel, and that really is the only reason we're there. So there is zero reason to support this pathetic posturing by our government. It's only going to embolden Iran, who are backing those Houthis. You'll never get a chance to forget it. The mainstream media will keep reminding you they've recently grabbed hold of a US-linked oil tanker, no less. Will more oil and gas traffic trying to come and go via the Persian Gulf be liable to be seized next as well? Keep an eye on that. Watch this video next to learn more about this incident as well, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.